The Titanic didn't sink because of bad luck, it sank because of arrogance, ignorance, and 6 massive errors that could have saved over 1,500 lives. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most haunting maritime disasters in history, the sinking of the RMS Titanic. It wasn't just the iceberg that doomed her, it was a chain of poor decisions, human errors, and misplaced confidence that turned a symbol of human progress into a floating coffin. Here are the 6 big mistakes that sank the unsinkable Titanic. Mistake #1: ignoring ice warnings before the Titanic struck the iceberg. The ship's radio operators received multiple warnings from nearby vessels. Ships like the Mesaba and Californian had sent urgent messages about massive ice fields drifting directly in Titanic's path. But the Titanic's wireless room was overwhelmed with passenger messages being sent to shore. Personal telegrams, business notes, even gossip. The most chilling part, when the Californian sent one final ice alert, the Titanic's operator actually told them to shut up. That message was never delivered to the bridge. Just hours later, the Titanic was speeding through the same area, blind to the danger ahead. Had the crew simply heeded those warnings, the ship might have slowed down, changed course, or stopped entirely for the night. But they didn't, and that arrogance sealed their fate. Mistake #2: sailing too fast in dangerous waters at the time of the collision. The Titanic was racing across the North Atlantic at nearly 22 knots, almost her top speed. Captain Edward Smith knew about the ice warnings, but he pushed forward anyway. The reason: pride, reputation, and pressure. White Star Line executives wanted Titanic to make headlines, not just for luxury, but for speed. Many believed that arriving early in New York would prove the ship's superiority. So instead of slowing down, they powered ahead through ice-filled waters under a moonless sky. This wasn't just risky, it was reckless. Even after the iceberg was spotted, the ship's speed made it nearly impossible to turn in time. If Titanic had been traveling slower, the crew might have avoided the collision entirely, or at least reduced the impact. Mistake #3: fatal design flaws. Titanic's design was hailed as revolutionary, but beneath the glamour lay deadly flaws. The ship's watertight compartments were anything but watertight. They were separated by bulkheads that didn't reach high enough to fully contain flooding. When the iceberg tore open the first 5 compartments, water poured over each partition like a waterfall. The designers had calculated that the ship could stay afloat with 4 compartments flooded, but 5 was the tipping point. Another overlooked flaw was the rivets. Investigations later revealed that many of the rivets used in Titanic's bow were made of substandard iron, making them brittle in freezing temperatures. When the iceberg struck, they popped out like buttons under stress, allowing more water to gush in. It wasn't just bad luck. It was poor engineering masked by overconfidence. Mistake #4: too few lifeboats. Perhaps the most infamous mistake of all, Titanic didn't have enough lifeboats for everyone on board. The ship carried only 20 lifeboats, enough for roughly half the passengers and crew. But here's the shocking part: it wasn't a mistake by accident. It was by design. The White Star Line wanted the decks to look spacious and elegant. Lifeboats were seen as clutter, not safety equipment. Regulations at the time were outdated and only required lifeboats based on ship tonnage, not passenger capacity. Titanic far exceeded the law's expectations, but common sense said otherwise. To make matters worse, during the evacuation, many lifeboats were launched half empty. One lifeboat designed for 65 people left with only 28 aboard. Crew members were untrained and confused, some believing the ship wouldn't sink at all. When the Titanic finally disappeared beneath the waves, over 1,500 people were left behind in the freezing ocean, while empty lifeboats drifted away. That tragic sight remains one of the darkest images in maritime history. Mistake #5: poor emergency response. When the iceberg struck, confusion spread faster than panic. Many passengers didn't even realize the ship was in danger until it was too late. There were no proper emergency drills, and the crew wasn't prepared for mass evacuation. Captain Smith delayed sounding the alarm. Officers gave inconsistent orders, and many didn't even know how to properly load or lower lifeboats. Passengers were told everything was fine. Some were even sent back to their cabins. Communication between decks broke down completely. Stewards in first class calmly reassured guests, while in third class, hundreds were trapped behind locked gates meant to separate them by class. Those precious minutes of hesitation cost countless lives. The Titanic wasn't just sinking. It was being failed by the very people meant to save it. Mistake #6 No proper rescue coordination after the iceberg collision. Titanic's distress signals were sent out using Morse code. The nearest ship capable of helping, the Californian, was only about 10 miles away, but its wireless operator had gone off duty for the night after being told to shut up earlier. Even worse, the Californian crew saw distress rockets in the distance, but didn't understand what they meant. They thought Titanic was simply having a celebration. By the time the Carpathia received the distress call and arrived, Titanic had already sunk, and hundreds had died in the freezing water. A simple, clear protocol for ship-to-ship communication could have changed everything. The technology existed, but the discipline and understanding didn't. Humanity's pride in its machines once again proved fatal when humility and caution were needed most. Conclusion and reflection: the sinking of the Titanic wasn't just a maritime disaster. It was a mirror reflecting the dangers of human pride. Every mistake, from ignoring warnings to underestimating nature, stemmed from one fatal belief, that we were too advanced to fail. Titanic represented the height of early 20th century engineering, but it also symbolized a world that believed technology could conquer nature. The ship was a triumph of innovation, but a tragedy of arrogance. Each mistake, from design flaws to poor leadership, from lack of preparation to blind ambition, combined into a perfect storm, and when the iceberg struck, it wasn't just steel that shattered, it was humanity's illusion of control. Today, over a century later, the Titanic's wreck still lies in the icy depths, preserved as a ghostly reminder. A warning that even the greatest achievements can be undone by the smallest mistakes. So the next time you hear someone say unsinkable, remember the Titanic. Remember that overconfidence, neglect, and pride can sink even the mightiest ship.